There's no substitute for hard work. The more you get up there, the more you do it, the more you become comfortable being uncomfortable, the better you get. What I've come to realise is that it's increasingly more and more difficult for people to actually look at themselves and be like, I'm going to accept full responsibility for everything that's going on in my life.
It's easy to blame someone else.
100%, man. And everyone's doing it.
What like your proudest moment?
I think like just confronting my fear and being able to have that honest dialogue with myself, because I think I'm just so comfortable with who I am that I just don't give a fuck.
Hello everybody, welcome to another episode. With me here today, Elliot Loney, comedian, impersonator, writer, director. By the numbers, he's the most watched and downloaded impressionist in Australia. He's here, we got him.
Where is he?
Honestly, thank you for coming. I've known about you for a very long time, and we had a conversation trying to chase you, and we had a good conversation on the phone. Like, I felt like your energy was really good, and now we've been talking probably 20 minutes before we just decided, like, fuck, we probably probably just turn it on. But I've been a fan of your work, man. I came and watched you in January when you did the Australian Open skit, and I've obviously seen you online. You every year I feel like you play a strong part in the Australian Open with your impersonation. So thank you for joining me, man.
Nah, thanks, Christian, mate. It's good to be on your show, and it was funny, mate. I think this is like probably the first time I've ever been in Ivanhoe, which is a pretty ridiculous admission.
Good story with getting your coffee. The first person you feel like didn't want your money.
Yeah, it's funny, man. Like, I feel like every shop that I've been in so far in Ivanhoe, it's felt like it's a front for something more sinister. Like, I walked into the shop before and I asked the lady if I wanted if I could give me a coffee, and she looked at me as if she was offended that she'd get my business. Like, it was just so strange. Like, the interaction didn't make any sense. Like, I was like, could I get a coffee? And she was like, I guess. Yeah.
And you had to make the trek down. Took you about an hour.
It took me an hour to get here. Probably got about 8 fines on the way here.
But we made it.
Oh, we made it in the end.
We made it. And I'd like to dive in, because looking into you, I discovered some interesting topics, or a bit about your past, which I thought was interesting.
Fuck, he's a cop.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I thought you were a real estate agent. For fuck's sake. Get me out of here.
I promise.
I made the joke when I walked in that I thought that looked like a dungeon. Didn't I? He's planning to lock me up. I've driven 65 minutes away from my destination to get locked up by a cop masquerading as a Collins real estate agent. What a story.
I promise I'm good. I promise I'm good. But honestly, man, it's honestly a pleasure. So give me a bit of give me a backstory about yourself, and how did you even get into impersonations? Because man, you can do bloody everybody.
Oh, thanks, mate.
There's somebody you can't do.
It's actually, it's funny you mention that. There is one impression that I really struggle to do, and it's Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with Troy Kinney. He's a brilliant stand-up comedian.
No.
He's had a TV show called Kinney, and I was lucky enough to be on his TV show in 2013, 2014, and then more recently on Channel 10 in 2019. And Troy's a great stand-up, and Troy's always made the observation, and he thinks it's quite funny, that I can impersonate everyone from, like Elmo to Morgan Freeman, but I can't do Arnie.
Why are you showing him? I
don't know. It's just weird. I'm not even going to attempt to do it.
Don't embarrass me.
But yeah, he made that observation. I thought that was pretty funny, actually. I thought about that. I'm like, you know what? He's probably right, because basically anyone who does impressions does Arnie. There's a couple of guys that they always do, but he made that observation. But yeah, I got into it through high school. Like, I was just like always the class clown, and I guess that's kind of like a stereotype with comedians, but like I literally was, and it's how I kind of made friends and socialized, and I loved making people laugh and seeing people really happy around me, and I fed off the energy. So like I just kind of realized that I had like, I guess, a knack for it quite early on, and I just used that to, make friends and pull pranks and just do outrageous shit through my high school, you know what I mean? So
there was so growing up as well, you're a tennis player?
Yeah, I played a shitload of tennis, and like I think I've mentioned this to a few people maybe on a couple of podcasts before, but I was like a real gimp, like before I discovered tennis. Like I was, up until the age of 11, I didn't play any sport. Like I'd literally just sit in my room and play computer games. And like my parents thought I was fucking whack. Like,
they're like looking in, like what the fuck?
Because I'd just sit in there and talk to myself in like different accents and shit like that, with my Super Nintendo just fucking hitting it, and they were just like, this guy's clinically insane. And I think I was, to be honest, like definitely was. But then one day, man, I was like at Sportsmart in Moorabbin, and I was with my dad, and I was like walking around the sports aisle, and I looked at a tennis racket and I was like, yeah, get me a racket, mate. And he was like, fucking mortgage and fucking wife. And, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, this little fucking what's the racket? Yeah, but I was just like, I'm serious. And he's like, mate, you don't play sport. And I was like, yeah, but Dad, like, I want to have a crack. And he's like, all right, whatever. Because at that point, I'd shown no interest in sport. Anyway, like, picked up the racket. We went to Moorabbin Indoor Tennis Centre around the corner. Had my first hit. Just fell in love with it, man. Like, it was almost like an autistic like affiliation, like this unparalleled affection for the sport. Like I literally from that day.
You never watched it, nothing?
Nah, just started playing tennis every single day for hours a day, every day. I think I didn't miss a single day, regardless of the weather, for like, I'd play in hail and shit for literally, I think 750 days in a row or something. Like I never missed a day. So yeah, then I just fell in love with tennis, and it was interesting through tennis. I then started to revisit other sports that I already thought that I wasn't suited for. But then I realised, hang on a second, I actually don't mind sport. And then through tennis, I became more sociable and less fucking weird. Still weird, but like, less like, I guess, just like, what's the word for it? Like reserved, or like just kind of like shy in a way. It took me out of my shell.
That's insane. And how did you feel like growing up as well? Like, did you have a lot of friends growing up, or like were you kind of reserved in that aspect, and then tennis
I think
gave you that? Or?
I think like early on, until about the age of 10 or 11, like I was probably a little bit more like reserved in that sense. Like I was probably a little bit more of a little freak. But then I guess like as I got older, and like, that socialization through sport really, I think, made me far more sociable and like, I guess like more integrated in like circles and stuff like that. And I just started like being, a lot more normal, I think. And I often think like if I hadn't have discovered tennis, what my life would look like now, I'd probably be the fucking weirdest bloke. I'd probably live in Ivanhoe.
Yeah. So just a bit of context on that.
If you're watching, I love Ivanhoe. I'm just taking.
We've been, there's been some interesting characters walking past.
The only reason I say that, and Christian's right, is because we're in this shop front here, and we can literally see everyone that's walking past, and we must be in Ivanhoe on a bad day, because there he is. Father Christmas, here he is, right on cue.
Well, after simulation, just keep rolling it in. Keep rolling it in.
Yeah, so.
Fuck, that's hilarious, man.
Yeah.
And you're funny, man. You're funny.
Thanks, bro.
Like going back into it. So you're a tennis fan. Like you're a big tennis fan.
I love it, man.
And like, cause it's funny. Like when you speak to a lot of people, like they play a sport or something, but they wouldn't follow it or anything like that. But you've obviously just continued.
Oh, pretty much like as a junior. So I played a lot of tennis right through my teens.
Yeah.
I wasn't probably a great talent, I wouldn't say, but like I worked insanely hard. So I realized the value of like hard work and, what like a ridiculous work ethic can garner you if you really just wholeheartedly focus on one avenue. Because I wasn't really interested in school. Like I screwed around a lot in high school and didn't make the most of my opportunities academically. I really regret that. But I did show myself what I'm capable of if I really hammer one thing and really focus on that. So I'm glad that tennis taught me that. And I mean, I guess the highest that I ascended to in tennis was I played for Victoria. Had some wins over some guys who ended up, having a professional career. Beat a few guys that got to around like the 200 in the world mark in juniors, like under 16s, under 18s. But I probably realised early on that, around 19, 20, that like if I kept going and really devoted my entire life to it, there's a chance that I probably would have attained an ATP point and been able to go through, because it's quite a difficult process, especially when I was playing. You had to win, you had to go to like a futures event, qualify for your futures event, then win like 3 rounds in qualifying, then win a round in main draw just to get an ATP point. So for me, it was kind of like, oh man, it's going to take me a long time to even get to that level. So I think I had that frank discussion with myself early and said, okay, maybe you should just explore other avenues, you know what I mean? Because like realistically, you're not going to make money from the sport. You might get an ATP point, but then again, like what's the point?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I just kind of realised early, like I'm better off maybe giving back to the sport in a coaching capacity. So I'm a qualified coach now.
Nice.
So at some point I'd probably revisit that. You know, I've always coached on and off throughout my life. So I love the sport and I love giving back to it. But I just thought to myself, maybe the best use of my time probably isn't to devote my entire life to turning professional when I knew I wasn't going to be Roger Federer or Rafa Nadal or, you know.
Well, it's pretty crazy that I feel like you are playing your part in the sport now in a comedy aspect, which I think's really cool. And you do bring a really cool angle to it. So, you know, kudos to you, and that's going to keep growing. But you know, it's wild. So, Fedge Village, he works with us, and
he was a great player.
Yeah, and really like now, like he's given me a complete rundown, and obviously we'll give the viewers a bit of context on like how difficult it is to actually make money in this sport.
It's insane.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of people don't really realise how hard it is to make it in tennis. Like, you know, no disrespect to AFL players, like they're obviously tremendous athletes, right? But the talent pool and the opportunity for AFL players is far more immense. Like you can get paid to play country footy or VFL or, you know, AFL, they get like well remunerated for their efforts. 100%. Mate, like you could be in the top 0.001% of tennis players in the world, in the entire 150th, right? In the entire world. And if you're like 500 in the world, you're not making a cent. And man, like in comparison to your skill level at that, it's fucking crazy. It's crazy. Like, you know, I know so many guys who are just so talented, but like they walk around like ghosts. No one would know who they are. Anyone outside the sport wouldn't give them respect. And it's just like, man, you have no idea how good this guy is.
Well, if you look at it, like, so the top, let's just say the top two, like the number 200 AFL player, he's on 300K.
Yeah, 100%.
The top 200 NBA players on 10 mil.
Yeah, absolutely.
The number 200 football player, like like soccer, he's on 10 mil.
Yeah, 100%. So I just think, like, you know, to reiterate, it's like there's way more opportunity in sports like AFL, but there's just not enough, I think, financial remuneration for athletes who are like just, I guess you could say, like fringe level tennis players, like, you know, because they're so talented and they could draw a crowd, but, you know, people just don't want to see it. They want to see Roger Federer, they want to see Rafa Nadal, they want to see Novak. So unfortunately right now there's not a market for it, but I guess governing bodies like Tennis Australia and stuff would be probably having conversations about how they can improve that aspect, I think, but it's just hard to do.
I don't really, like I've seen, so I don't know if this ever got released. So Born at Courage.
Yeah.
He was launching an NFT project.
Oh, nice.
And around the NFT project what a lot of it was going to be was you buy in, and let's just say they raise a couple $1 million. What they were going to do, and I might be wrong, I don't know the exact specifics, I haven't looked into it for a long time, but they were going to then invest in like players that they believe,
oh, that's cool, man.
Could like really make it, and then give them that opportunity to grow. And then once they do make it, I think you're going to get a portion of the prize money.
Oh wow,
or something like that.
Good initiative, but unfortunately NFTs haven't really kicked off. Haven't they gone strip back a little bit? I've heard
they have. They're literally getting completely like smacked at the moment. They're getting wiped. But
Borna got stitched up there. His heart was in the right place. But,
I think it's
those low tier tennis players just copped another hit.
Yeah.
It's just like, now they owe money on the NFTs.
Well, it's interesting. Like even the a thing with Nick Kyrgios the other day. So he's, I think it's a crypto thing, which I've been saying this concept was going to blow up, and then I saw it the other day. Nick's started pushing it, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. So what you do is you can so let's just say I don't know, this is like you look at someone like a young player or something. I'm sure they can probably bet on themselves, and you say, oh, I think they're going to do really well this year. You can actually put money on it, and then if they go from like rank 1,000 to like 100.
Yeah, actually, I did see something on his story about that. That's actually a pretty good initiative. That's pretty smart, actually. I think. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, there's some cool little initiatives there, but so I don't know. It's really sad with the sport. And you mentioned something before, like why you said you regret not doing well academically. Like why do you say that?
Oh man, I just think hindsight being 2020, when you're young and I kind of just loved being a larrikin and screwing around and not paying attention, and I didn't really think about how that would impact me in the future. To be honest, I've been quite fortunate that I've landed on my feet and it hasn't impacted me too much. But if I had a son or a daughter, I'd probably be, more staunch on them in terms of their academic. I'd probably stick with them and be like, look, I want you to finish school. You know what I mean? I screwed around a lot, in hindsight, I regretted it a fair bit, man. I literally I couldn't even begin to explain to you how it's unfathomable that I didn't get expelled. It's ridiculous. The stuff that I was doing in school, it's remarkable that I didn't get a strike to my name. So, being mature now and having grown up a lot, I look back at that and I'm like, oh, maybe I should have just, it's just only a few years, you know what I mean? I don't know. That's just how
Do you think I don't know, is there another path that you think you would have taken if you did that, or
Oh man, it's a good question. I don't know. I probably would have done something. I don't know what it is, but I think, just to be honest, I don't think the structure of school was for me as well. I think obviously I learned differently, and I think my attention span has improved as I've gotten older. But I was tested for ADHD 9 times. My parents just flat out wouldn't accept the fact that I didn't have ADHD. So they kept taking me back to this laboratory.
Just write it on the paper.
Yeah. But for whatever reason, I've always had this EQ and this social intelligence that's always been inherent to me. So even when I was a young kid, I could tell when something was off. So I think what was happening was my EQ radar was going off whenever I was getting tested, but they didn't know that I was aware that I was being watched. So I was sitting there being really well behaved, and in the moment I'd get in the car with my parents, I'd fucking skits it again. So I'm pretty sure I definitely probably do have ADHD, but I was just misdiagnosed as a kid because I could always tell when I was under the lens.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So yeah,
very interesting. And then so you moved on from school, and where did male stripping? Where did what was the day where you just said, fuck it, this is my calling, we're going for it?
Yeah, all right. It all started. So basically second year out of high school, I had a guy that I was friendly with at the time, and he's a good fella, and we were just kind of talking, and he was telling me at the gym that he was doing topless waitering, and I was like, what's that? And he started to describe what it was and, how much money he was making. I think back then he was making 50 to 60 bucks an hour. Didn't have his RSA, so didn't have a license to serve alcohol. Didn't know how to make a drink. But all he would do is walk around in jeans with a bow tie, shirt off, and just serve drinks that were already made. And I was like, mate, that sounds like the best job in the world.
Get me on.
Yeah. So obviously I signed up the next day, and I was doing a lot of gym work at the time. This was right after the time that I sort of stopped playing tennis, and I just realised that how great of a job it was. And then obviously the natural progression was, to get a routine together and get into stripping. So I got 2 left feet, so I wasn't the best stripper, but I was pretty quick to take my pants off. So, and the girls were pretty quick to regret me taking the pants off. So as soon as they saw my Tiny Pin Johnson, they were like, put it back on, put it back on. Obviously retired now, hung up the G-string, but it was like one of those things where I didn't actually do it for very long because I realised like I didn't actually enjoy the stripping side of things. I was more like, you know, at the time I was doing a bit of comedy stuff and I was interested in stand-up. I didn't really know how to do it. And I thought, oh, this would be great for me in terms of my stagecraft if I could MC it. So I asked the boss, who like probably was the most, how do I say this, like politically incorrect corporate guy I've ever met in my life. Like all of my corporate dealings with that guy were so strange. Like I think back to like all of my dialogue with this guy and there was no HR. It was just so weird, man. And like every time I went through with a request, he would just like sit there and be like, okay, mate, if you want to do that, we can arrange it. Like it was some fucking, I don't know. It was weird. And so he gave me the opportunity to MC and every single Saturday night, I had the opportunity to go up in front of like 300 to 400 girls and just MC a show that ran for 2 hours. So each strip would go for maybe 15 to 20 minutes, I'd say max. There was maybe 6 strippers and I'd come on at the start, do the intro, play games at the halftime break and introduce all of the acts and wrap up the show. And I did that every single week for years.
I was going to say play good into where you... Like,
exactly, man. So like it was interesting when I did eventually... start doing stand-up comedy. Obviously, I had a lot to learn in terms of like the joke mechanics and writing and comedy, and I still am obviously trying to learn as much as I can when it comes to that. But I had a head start when I looked around and saw the other open micers around me in terms of my stagecraft and comfortability on stage, because I was like, hang on a second, I didn't even realise at the time, but all those years of emceeing the strip show has given me a real comfortability on stage that a lot of like the other open micers that I saw when I was starting out just didn't have.
Yeah, man.
And I didn't even realise that was like an apprenticeship, essentially what I was doing.
It'd probably be a bit more of an intense crowd as well. Like
Man, it's interesting. Like there was a time for a little bit there where I was doing both. I was doing emceeing and stand-up. And immediately when I started doing that, I tried to run material at the strip shows. And every time I'd start the joke, they'd just be like, take it off, fuck this. Yeah, like I couldn't get a gag out. You know, they wanted gags, but to gag on dicks. They didn't want gags. Not in that sense. But mate, the stuff I saw, like it was really interesting for a while because man, I got to say this, like I've obviously come to realise that like, you know, as you get older and mature that like, you know, not all girls are like this, of course, but like being exposed to that environment so early, I saw some horrific things, man, because I was always under the impression that like girls and guys were so different when it came to like faithfulness in a relationship and stuff like that. And it was usually the guy that played up. But man, from the age of 19 through to like 27, I just watched every single weekend girls cheat on their husbands, their fiancés, their partners, week after week after week after week. And I was just like, for a second there, I was like, are all girls like this?
Yeah.
But then fortunately, I've met some fantastic girls that have obviously changed my whole opinion on that. But it did take me a while to have trust in my relationships and stuff like that. Like it did affect me from that point of view for a while. But, you know, being where I'm at now in a good place in my life, I feel like I'm a lot more balanced. But, yeah, it didn't come without its shortcomings is what I'll say in terms of, like, you know, what I was exposed to early, you know.
It's interesting because it messed with you because I think, no judgment, obviously. Guys are as interesting as women.
Absolutely, yeah.
I feel like guys probably do have that stigma more than women.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think, you know, just it was interesting to be exposed to that at a young age.
Yeah,
and you know, I reiterate again, I'm definitely not of that opinion now.
Yeah,
but you know, you can understand, objectively speaking, being in that position, it can leave you a little bit jaded.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like imagine being like a 19-year-old kid having this like, you know, view that you know
100%.
that doesn't happen, and then just seeing it week in, week out,
yeah.
you're just kind of like, wait, what? Like,
What the fuck is
what
going
the fuck's
on?
going on? Yeah,
Yeah.
so it changed a little bit, but yeah, obviously now I've realised that, you know, they're probably not the women that I'd want to settle down with anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting to be exposed to that as well.
Even like, just, I don't know, just for yourself, like putting yourself into that environment obviously helped you a lot. So then going into stand up, how have you found that? I know you stopped, you were smashing it for a while, then you stopped, and now you've started again.
Yeah.
So yeah, how was that transition in? And when you do stand up, do you only do impersonations, or what's
Yeah, it's a good question. So I'll answer, that's a two-parter. So I'll answer the first part and say, like, obviously I was doing a lot of stand-up from like, I think 2013 or 2014 I did my first gig. Did a lot of stuff. 2015, 2016 was like, you know, I started to get some momentum. Like I entered into a stand-up competition called Raw Comedy. A lot of comedians will be familiar with that. It's like a stand-up comedy competition for newcomers. And I was a finalist in that competition, which was like kind of a big deal in the newbie comedy scene, you know what I mean? And then shortly after that, I won like a rising star comedy competition for like new comics again. So like I started to feel like I was solidifying myself as someone who's maybe on the radar of a lot of these, like, you know, people who could maybe take my career and put me in the right trajectory. So I felt quite confident. And then all of a sudden, like I started to get anxiety, and not anxiety just in the sense of like 24/7. It was specifically performance anxiety. So I started to get this little monkey on my back and this demon that would like talk to me on my shoulder being like, you're not good enough. Like, because all of a sudden I felt as though I had something to lose. And for years I was like, I got nothing to lose. I'm just going out there doing this. And then all of a sudden, even though it was all in my head, it was all falsified, I'd go into a venue and be like, they're talking about you. If you fuck up, everyone's going to know, and everyone's going to talk about how shit you were. And it got so bad, man, that like there were times I'd rock up to gigs and my name would get called and then I'd just leave.
Oh,
yeah, I'd just turn up to a gig, man, and they'd call my name to the stage and I'd just fucking leave.
Whoa.
Yeah, man, it was crazy. So
what the?
Yeah, so that's why I stopped. So
no way.
Yeah, dude, I stopped doing comedy altogether. So like I just kind of capitulated. I couldn't overcome that fear.
Was there something happening? Like, was there an event, or was there some major pillar that just really put...
Yeah, I think there was one gig that I did. I've mentioned this before on another podcast, but, you know, I'll say it again for conversation's sake. It's like I did a gig for the ACT Congress at Etihad, which is now Marvel Stadium, for Julia Gillard in front of 5,000 people. And it was like, I did Tony Abbott, for example, so I couldn't like do all of my characters like I usually do. And I learned a lot of hard lessons that night. But Bill Shorten brought me on stage and I tanked in front of like 5,000 people. And like, I had a full capitulation after that, like, because at that point, I'd never really bombed, and I'd never bombed to that magnitude. And I was just like, fuck me. And like, at the same time, that's when I was getting that stage fright. And I was just like, nah, I can't do this anymore. Like, that anxiety is too much. So I just walked away from it completely, man. And I didn't do any stand-up, no performing for like 5 years.
Really? What was it about the like bomb? Is it just you couldn't nail the characters, or is it the crowd? Or?
Yeah, good question. So like basically when you do like a corporate gig like that, they come in and they like to screen your material, especially when it's a political gig like that.
Yeah.
And because I was stuck in character as Tony Abbott, nowhere in the itinerary were they like comedian. It was just kind of like special guest. So like the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra in the pit, like playing the cellos and the violins, and Bill Shorten's like, and here he is, special guest. And I've walked on the stage as Tony Abbott, like wielding this little fighter jet, doing jokes about Afghanistan and shit. And I think the whole crowd just thought I was a fucking freak, like some guy that just like took the stage and like, you know, 15 minutes beforehand, Julia Gillard had just done this speech to a standing ovation. Yeah. And then Bill Shorten comes on and then I come out. Yeah. And like obviously it was pretty bad. Like there were cameras everywhere and my face was on these big projectors throughout the entire like arena. And so like as I bombed, for whatever reason, this sinister fucking cameraman thought it'd be a good idea to zoom in on my face. So like I'm bombing more and more, perspiring more and more, and I'm just like, the cameras are zooming in, man. So like the footage is somewhere. I refuse to watch it. It's on a hard drive somewhere, but one day I might dig it out when I'm doing some better things. But for the time being, it's lying dormant somewhere on a hard drive. But it is out there.
But when you say when you say bombed, was it more like just the crowd? It was just the wrong crowd for it, or
look, I think there was a combination of me maybe being in a weird headspace, because that was right around the time that I started to get that performance anxiety. But
so it was creeping.
It was creeping, but then also like it was the first time I was ever restricted to one person. So I took away 2 really hard lessons from that. One, people need to be prepared for laughter. I think like comedy is one of those mediums where if they're not prepared for a comedian, everyone always has these bright ideas when they book a comedian and go, mate, it'll be a surprise. No one will know that you're there. And like from that moment forward, I'm always like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
You tell them that there's a comedian there and he's coming to do jokes. I want everyone to know that, because otherwise the audience isn't ready to laugh. They don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, one of the big lessons I took away from that. And also, because I do so many impressions, it's always given me like a ripcord or a parachute that I can pull if something's not going well.
Nice,
I can go to the next one, and but if I'm stuck in character and the jokes aren't landing and they're not the jokes aren't resonating with the audience, or they're not connecting with the character, then I've realized like if you can't move and you're stuck, like you're in a prison, you're fucked.
Yeah.
So like I knew like 30 seconds in that I was going to bomb, but I had to do 10 minutes. So I'm sitting there 30 seconds in going, fuck, this is going to be a long 9.5 minutes. I just had to eat shit. Yeah. So, yeah, that's just a lesson I learned.
Fuck, that's interesting. And then, so then after that, that was your last one for 5 years?
Yeah, pretty much, man. That, like straight after that, I went to one more comedy gig. I think I got up, to be honest. No, I definitely went and did like maybe 1 or 2 more comedy gigs, like small tier ones. Managed to get on stage. Bit of I obviously felt horrific about doing it. Like I didn't feel normal. And then I think I went and did one more gig somewhere else, a bigger one where I was like maybe a feature or a headline act, and I just left. And then I was like, okay, there's something wrong with me. Like there's something wrong here. So that's when I decided to put it away.
Okay, so then you put it away, and then where'd you go? Where'd you move your focus to?
That's when I decided to, I did my tennis coaching qualification, became a certified tennis coach, started doing some tennis coaching, did some personal training.
So you kind of binned everything?
Yeah, man, completely. Completely.
Wow.
Yeah, completely. I just stopped doing gags, stopped doing everything, just like disappeared. I studied like a bit of digital marketing as well. So I worked in like a little digital marketing agency for a little while as well, just like a desk job, hated it. And then I was just kind of like, man, I don't know what I'm doing. And I came back and I wasn't too serious about it. I just felt like I overcame the performance anxiety. But then when I came back after my long hiatus, I was kind of having this monologue with myself being like, do I like this? I don't know if I want to do this anymore. But I think that was just fear creeping in, to be honest with you. And then I stepped away again. And then it wasn't until Australia's Got Talent became a genuine sort of opportunity that it got me off my ass again.
No way. Okay. So that was last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was actually. So I didn't pursue Australia's Got Talent. What happened in my case, and I think what happens in a lot of other contestants' cases are, you have the option to audition for an opportunity to audition for the actual show, or a producer will come and reach out to you specifically and say, would you be interested in auditioning for Australia's Got Talent? And that was on the table for a few years, and COVID happened, and then there was another year that went by that I decided not to do it, and I kept saying no for a few years. And then the offer was on the table again. They contacted me again and said, we'd really like you to come on the show. And I kind of thought to myself, you know what, like, fuck, what else am I going to do? I'm coaching tennis, I'm doing personal training, I'm not doing much with my life right now. I probably should do it. And so I just kind of swallowed that pride a little bit, swallowed that fear, and just kind of like went and did it.
Just jumped.
Just jumped. And, Yeah, I think I had to have some pretty frank and honest conversations with myself as well, man, which was pretty hard to do. Like I did some personality tests, tried to understand myself better. And I did like a personality test that revealed that I'm really high in neuroticism. So like obviously I'm really self-critical of like my own stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that made a lot of sense because throughout my whole, I guess you could say, career, everyone else has always said to me, you're so talented, you should be doing so much more. And my inner monologue would be like, okay, objectively, I can understand that I have a lot of tools that lend themselves well to this avenue that I've dedicated myself to. But by the same token, I'm not good enough. I don't know if I could do that. I don't think I'm smart enough. I don't think like that's the monologue that I would have with myself. So then I had to go, man, and look in the mirror before Australia's Got Talent and actually say to myself, hey, man, like, why aren't you attaining the level of success that other people think you should be attaining? And then I just kind of realized, I was like, bro, it's hard to say. I had to look at myself in the mirror and be like, it's because you're afraid. Fucking hectic thing to say, man. So, yeah.
That's actually wild.
It was wild, man. And it is. Like, fuck, I didn't think I'd get emotional saying it, but it's true. Like, I actually was, it was quite an emotional thing for me. And so I decided to just confront the fear. And I think Australia's Got Talent really helped me in confronting that fear. And what I realized after doing it is, for whatever reason, that performance anxiety disappeared. And then a mortgage appeared. And, and my motivation just erected itself.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just like, you've kind of like, I'm actually really happy that, in a sense, that we've opened up this story, because I'm just thinking about people that are listening to this, about how many people that are scared to do something or got scared because something happened and they've been scared to take the leap. So, man, I really appreciate you sharing this.
Yeah, well, man, it's just important, I think, because like a lot of the time, people look at someone and they make their own interpretation about how that person goes about their shit. And like, I think I'd probably come across as like this crazy, zany, confident, ridiculous operator for someone that doesn't know anything about me. But at the same time, like, doing that personality test that I mentioned earlier, like when I revealed that I was really high in neuroticism, I was like, oh, get fucked. But then I thought about it for a second and I was like, oh man, that's actually really true when I think about it. Like I've always been so harsh on myself. And I think that's why like I'm really careful about who I take criticism from. And I always have been. Like I'm all for constructive criticism, but I'll try and take that criticism from someone who's like an expert in their field or someone who I know has my best interests at heart. Because when I hear it from like a random person or someone I don't know very well, I'll probably just sometimes internally be like, fuck, I already know that, mate. Like I've already looked at myself and picked myself apart and ripped into myself and hammered myself, because that's just the kind of person I am. So, I'm trying at the moment to be a bit more positive in the way that I talk to myself, because like I think for years other people have seen a lot more in me than I'd been willing to see in myself.
100%. Like, it's funny that you say that. Like, I feel like I was, like me personally, probably, I don't know, before 20, like probably up until late 2021, mid 2021, I was, you couldn't actually break through me. Like I was so positive in everything. And then like the last 18 months myself, like I've been going through a few things that have kind of punctured me. And I've realized that self-talk, like what you can be telling yourself, can be extremely detrimental.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And especially with comedy, you know what I mean? Because it is like one of those industries where, well, I've come to realize anyway, there's some unbelievable, great people doing comedy, don't get me wrong. But then there's some people in the comedy scene that like to talk down on other people or say that kind of stuff. And I'm just kind of like, man, at this point in my life, I've got no time for that, hey? Like I'm literally at this point thinking to myself, like I only want to surround myself with people who are trying to better themselves, better their craft and become a better performer, better person. Like I don't have time for any negative talk. Like literally, if someone's talking negatively about a comic or a performance or something like that, I just fucking walk away, man. 100%. I don't have time for that shit anymore, 100%. Man. Like all I'm focused on is trying to become better and take something constructive away from every single time I'm on stage. And that's what I'm trying to be conscious of now as a performer, yeah.
give me good energy or fuck, just get the fuck out.
100%, man. Like, and I think that's the thing, you know, like now that I'm in my 30s, it's like, mate, it's like I just don't have time for this shit.
Yeah.
I literally don't have time for it.
Yeah. Well, it's like, man, I think as yourself, you're a good ball of energy, like from the conversation that I had with you on the phone, and then obviously now, like you bring amazing energy, and I think you're really good at what you do. So
thanks, man.
It's just keep punching. But one thing you're the first comedian I've actually like had on the podcast. So I'm actually really happy for that. And there's this thing
that's sick.
Yeah, and I've always actually wanted to ask this question. So they say, like, I read something, I don't know, I think it was a comedian or something said it, that I think he came out and said, it was a famous one, I'm pretty sure, like, I don't know the exact quote, but he came and pretty much said that, like, a lot of comedians see, like, they're not depressed, but they see the world in a very interesting light. You know, when they're cracking jokes about and the audience is laughing, when really, like, they're kind of bagging their audience. You see, I think there's been a few comedians that have suicided and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, is there anything? I'm not like, I'm trying to say you're depressed.
Are you trying to say that I look like I'm on edge, Christian?
No, not at all. I'm really curious to hear your perspective on that. Like, maybe not from you, but if there's, like, you'd obviously know a lot of comedians. If there's anything you can give me on that, Elliot, I've always wanted to ask that question.
Yeah, so, that's a really interesting thing that you bring up, honestly, because I've thought about that too. And like, I think everyone's reason for doing stand-up comedy is different. I think some comedians really seek that validation. Some comedians just love feeling that laughter and that warmth from the audience. You know, some comedians just want to feel loved. You know, I think, like, for me, I was trying to think about what my reason was, and I was just kind of thinking to myself, like, I just wanted to confront my fears. Like, that's my reason for doing it, because, like, you know, I've often said, out of all the impersonations I do, the hardest impersonation I've ever found is to be someone who's not afraid. So, like, everyone always says to me, and ever since I came back doing comedy, everyone's always like, man, you look so comfortable on stage. Like, fuck, you look comfortable on stage. And I'm like, well, I'm not. But I just come across that way because I'm always consciously being like, if I have no fear, then I'm going to free the audience from concern. And people who are concerned will not laugh. So if everyone's free from concern, then people are going to relax. And when they're relaxed, I can hold their attention, and then I can create suspense, which creates laughter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, which creates suspense, which then creates surprise, which then creates laughter. So it's kind of like, you know, that's why I'm, you know, that's, I think, why I'm doing it, just to confront. Yeah. So, and every time I'm doing it now because I feel like I'm in a really good place in my life, and I can say this now, that, like, I'm getting better and better, and I'm feeling freer and freer. Like, last night I was in stage on Frankston. I did 27 minutes, and I was just fucking around for 27 minutes. And it was like the first time since I've come back where I was just kind of like riffing with the crowd, going off track, coming back into bits. And I was just like, wow, like, I haven't felt like this for years.
That's interesting.
So it's a really good feeling. So now, like, through the process of doing comedy as if I love it, because I don't love stand-up comedy, I'm becoming more infatuated with it, if that makes sense. Like, I think I saw a podcast with Mike Tyson. It's a ridiculous thing for me to quote something that Mike Tyson said. He's quite a profound unit, though. And he was saying, like, discipline is doing, I think it's something, I'm probably going to fuck the quote up, but he said, like, discipline is doing something you hate, but doing it like you love it. And I was kind of like, wow, it's it, eh? So that's what I'm trying to do with comedy now. Like, now, like I said, I've always been very vocal that I don't love stand-up comedy. I feel as though I'm starting to grow to love it through constantly putting myself in that posion.
That's crazy.
That's weird.
Okay,
yeah.
That's very interesting. Because I watched you in Genuine when you did the Australian Open.
Yeah.
I thought you were really good.
Yeah, like, well, that was a tough gig, the one you're referencing. Yeah, it was a tough gig. Yeah, for anyone who's listening now, what Christian just brought up was I did a thing with the Sushi Mango Boys on Margaret Court Arena during the Australian Open. The final. Yeah. And it was like the day of the match, I got a call from someone at Tennis Australia being like, or it might have been the night before, being like, hey, would you like to come along and attend this thing with Sushi Mango, do some impressions and commentate the match? You'd be there for like an hour max. But I ended up staying for the entire duration of the match. And, you know, it's all fine if you're doing like impressions for a little while, but like, you know, I was like commentating the match, trying to provide tennis analysis, trying to do gags, but at the same time, Tennis Australia, I think we mentioned off mic, are quite politically correct. So they were very strict and stringent with me in the sense they were like, don't do anything offensive, be funny, but don't cross the line. And I was like, okay, my job is to find the line and then oftentimes deliberately cross it. Yeah. So we'll see how we evoke laughter from doing that, shall we? So I was kind of sitting there really awkwardly, and every single time I said something, because we're on Margaret Court Arena, like it wasn't full, but it was pretty busy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And I was sitting there like in the center of the court with these Sushi Mango boys being like, every single time that I said something, I'm like, can I say that? And I'd look over at like the PR chick and she'd be like underneath the tunnel, like just looking at me being like, and I'd be like, what can I say? Like, what can I say? Like, I don't know. It was a weird gig. Even the Sushi Mango boys said that. It was a bit of a strange one, but...
It was interesting. Yeah, it was a very interesting, just the whole, everything about it. Like, it was just like you're watching a tennis match and you got like a comedy going on down the bottom.
Yeah. It was weird, man. Yeah. So weird.
But I think you guys did good.
Yeah, it was fun, man. It was sick. It was just a weird... Yeah, I couldn't believe you were there.
Yeah.
You like sent me a message or like I think a video of me like doing Rafa on the court or something. I was like, "What are you doing here, Christian?"
No, it was so like, funny. Man, I was. It was raining, and I was like, "Fuck!" I saw you guys were on. And I was like, "Fuck it!" Like we'll go in there and just watch it. And then it was weird because I'm like trying to watch the game and like there's like no commentating going on, so it's like you guys are the commentators. I'm like, this is a very interesting thing going on, but you guys had the crowd, man, which is really good. And,
no, it was good. I did feel that.
How do you feel like when you're going into like? So you've been performing at the comedy clubs and stuff, correct?
Yeah, all around.
How do you feel like when you do that kind of stuff? Like, is it because everyone's going in there for comedy? Yeah,
look, man, I think like it's just one of those things where like I think I've listened to a lot of podcasts and I've watched a lot of comedy and I've like seen a lot of comedians that I really respect and revere. And I think every single one of them has just said like there's just no secret, mate. Just keep getting up on stage. Like the more you do it, the better you'll get. And it's really simple advice. And I even remember years ago, I did a gig. I was on the same lineup as Mick Malloy at the Brighton Yacht Club. It was when I first started out. And I was obviously pretty green and I saw Mick Malloy and we were talking and I was like, he was pretty cut. Like he had a beer in his hand. He was swaying left to right, typical Mick style. And I looked at him and I'm like, mate, you know, just started out, first year in comedy, mate. Like, you know, big fan. Like, is there any advice you can give me? Like, give me any advice, Mick. And he literally swayed side by side. Picture this is the beer. He's like this. He looks at me and he goes, yeah, just keep fucking doing it. And he stumbled down the stairs and literally like walked, I think he drove home. But I was like, in my head, I was like, oh, that's a bit shit. Like I was hoping for a bit more. But, you know, as time has gone by, I often think back to what Mick said to me and I was like, fuck, that's the most profound thing you could possibly say. Like, really, like seriously, like it sounds ridiculous, but as I've come back to the scene and now I feel like I'm improving a lot every time I get on stage, I've realized I'm like, he's right. There's no substitute for hard work. The more you get up there, the more you do it, the more you become comfortable being uncomfortable, the better you get. And I'm just getting better every time, I feel, at the moment.
Insane.
Yeah.
Well, it's I feel like you've, as we were saying earlier, like you kind of are a piece every time the Australian Open comes around. You're playing your part, and you know Nick Kyrgios and Thanasi Kokkinakis is really like put you on giving you a bit of a platform as well.
Yeah, they're great
to put yourself out there, which is really cool. What opportunities have been arising? It's probably been like, I don't know, what would you say is like probably like your proudest moment in a sense?
Oh man, I think like just confronting my fear and being able to have that honest dialogue with myself, because I think like when I mentioned earlier about eyeballing myself in the mirror, what I've come to realize, especially with I'm a millennial and you know Gen Z and like these younger generations and stuff, I'm noticing that it's increasingly more and more difficult for whatever reason, whether that be social media or whatever, for people to actually look at themselves and be like, I'm going to accept full responsibility for everything that's going on in my life.
It's easy to blame someone else.
100%, man. And everyone's doing it. Like, it's so easy. And I've been guilty of it as well throughout my life, being like, it's his fault, it's her fault. I did nothing wrong. But then if you just even pretend to be like, okay, maybe I should start taking responsibility for every single thing that's wrong in my life, even if it's not your fault and you feel that way, just to give yourself that, okay, I'm going to take responsibility for everything. And it kind of is like a liberating feeling in the sense that, like, I just feel as though I'm, like working harder. I've got a better work ethic. I'm in a better headspace. I feel like I've matured a lot, and I just want to make good on, one of the things that I'm really thankful for is I feel like over the years I've built up like quite a loyal following of people. And I feel like they've never really, lost faith in me, and they've always supported me, which is something I'm really thankful for. So I think, like, not only am I doing this for myself, as I said, to confront my fear, but I want to give them the best version of me, because they've seen something in me that I haven't seen in myself, and I want to try and deliver that to them.
That's crazy.
So, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's kind of like another motivation.
How do you feel like, you've got a decent following online, and I'm sure, as you mentioned before, people come in and they whack you, but how do you kind of take that?
Like criticism?
Or just trolls, man. Or people
it's funny.
DMing
it's
you.
funny, man. I think, as I mentioned now, because I'm older now, and I feel really comfortable in myself, and I think that comes through osmosis for most people as they get older.
Yeah.
But really, I was actually having this conversation the other day with my misso. I was saying, like, I'm just so comfortable with who I am that I just don't give a fuck. Unless it's something constructive coming from someone that I revere or respect, or, as I said, has my best interest at heart, I just don't care, because I'm really comfortable with who I am. I'm very confident in the person that I'm endeavoring to become, or the best version of myself that is, down the road. I'm focused on that. I've got the blinkers on. I'm doing one video a week from now on. I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of reels every single day. So, like, over the course of time, I don't know when this podcast will come out, but I'm hoping that your listeners, once they listen to it and see me over the next few months and maybe years, they'll look back at this and be like, wow, he actually like went through with it. So that's my plan. I'm just trying to like focus solely on who I was yesterday and trying to better myself from that man to the next day. That's and fuck everything else. Like, I think I used to be really wrapped up in that, and that probably contributed to that performance anxiety. But now I'm just like, nah, I'm a man now. I got to get in the driver's seat and fucking get on with it.
That's insane.
That's it.
Where do you see, like, where do you want to go? Like, where do you see yourself over the next 5 to 10 years? Like, how do you want it all to play out?
Look, I think like I said, one thing that I was always like, and it goes back to, I'm repeating myself, but I did say that I did that personality test, and the neuroticism thing's a big thing. Like, for years, man, like, everyone always got like almost like annoyed with me, I felt like, and I never really understood why. Like, they were just like, man, what are you doing? Like, and I'd be like, where's the aggression coming from, bro? Like, I'm just out here. They'd be like, nah, man, like, what are you doing fucking coaching tennis? Like, what do you, like, get on stage, like, make good on your talent. Like, you should be, like I said, other people have always seen so much more than I've been willing to see for myself. And so, like, I guess, like, I've just kind of been thinking to myself, why is that? So, I think it's just kind of like, maybe one of the thought processes I've had recently is maybe there's a reason they're saying it. Because if it was just one person here and there, I'd probably be like, nah, but it's a common theme that I've just seen throughout the years that have rolled by. And now that I'm getting older, I feel like time's, more precious. I'm like, maybe I should be trying to be the best version of myself and as a performer or as a human to, align with what they're saying, because they're obviously saying it for a reason. Otherwise they wouldn't say it. So even if I don't recognize it or choose to believe it myself, if I work hard enough, maybe I'll just arrive there. So
100%.
Yeah.
100%,
Yeah.
man. Like, I think it's just one of those things that it's just, you just got to keep swinging.
That's
you
it.
You look at like Nick Kyrgios or Thanasi Kokkinakis, or even just, anybody.
Yeah.
Federer.
That's it.
Like, for them, I'm sure they've gone through a lot through their lives where they didn't probably think, or they're doubting themselves, and
Yeah, I think honestly, it's like, I'm just going to focus on bettering myself every single day. And I think the destination is going to take care of itself.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to hammer the content, do as much content as I can, fuck the haters, couldn't care less, and become the best performer, the best version of myself that I can be. That's all I can ask.
That's
and
insane.
I think, and honestly, man, I really think that the results will speak for themselves. And it doesn't matter if it happens in a few months. It doesn't matter if it happens in a few years. If I just stay on that path, I think it'll happen. So,
what are your what are your targets, and what do you want to achieve?
Well, man, it was interesting. Like, I think I don't know if you know this, but I think it was COVID. I'm trying to remember. Maybe it was like 2 years ago now. But I auditioned for Saturday Night Live, which is pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty sick, man. And like, I think I was one of the first, the first Australian resident. I think there was an Australian on the show called Bowen Yang or something. He was born in Australia and then moved. But like, I was the only like Australian-born guy I was asked to audition. And it was like a big thing, and couldn't get over there because of COVID. But then it kind of affirmed to me like, oh, okay, like, if I'm on that radar and I can, do those impersonations, and that's like something that's like of interest to them, then maybe there's a little bit more for me. So yeah, I think, moving forward, there could be like opportunities for me in the States. I think like,
Wow.
in all honesty, like I'd settle for, I'd love to do radio. That's always been something I'd love to do. I'd love to get into acting as well. But like even I think in America, there's just so much more opportunity for people in my industry than there is in Australia at the moment. But like I mentioned earlier, the acting thing is a cool thing. Like I've always been a big fan of Eric Bana, because I know that he started in stand-up comedy. And I opened for Jim Owen the other night, and Jim Owen's wife was there at the Comics Lounge, and she gave me the best compliment I've ever had in my entire life. My girlfriend was there. We were all like standing around just having a talk, and I love Jim. Like, he's one of my favourite comics, and I'm just a bit like starstruck and having a sick time, and I'm just talking to her, and she goes, you know what, you remind me of Eric Bana. Because Eric Bana used to open for Jim Owen. It was his opening act. You remind me so much of Eric. And like, Mia saw me just like, my girlfriend saw me just like sit up, and I was like, she knew that that's like the best thing that she could have said, because like I idolise him. And yeah, like I kind of love the fact that what I've heard, I've never seen Eric do stand up, but he was quite similar to me in the sense that he did a lot of impressions, used to integrate that into his comedy act, and then obviously went on to do acting and had that trajectory. So I was like, oh, okay, well maybe, if something like that presents itself, I might be able to do something similar, or I don't know. But like, it was just cool that she drew that correlation. So I was like, fuck, that could be on the cards as well. Okay. Hopefully. I mean, that's a perfect world. Obviously, I'm talking like that's the zenith. Yeah. But, it's not off the table, I don't think.
Well, it's wild. Like, even I don't know, just TikTok and just social media in itself just opens up so many avenues. So many. Where it's going to go.
Yeah, man.
It's wild, mate. It's actually funny that you mentioned Eric Bana. Is he living in Melbourne right now?
Yeah, dude, I think so, because he lives around the corner from
I'm pretty sure like he was running, like we'll drive. I'm like, is that Eric Bana? Really? Just the other day.
Jesus Christ. In Ivanhoe?
No,
Jesus Christ.
In bloody Collingwood. I'm pretty sure he was, I don't know.
That's so weird.
I'm looking at him like, he's just running. I'm like, is that like, that's got to be Eric Bana.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
he's had a ripping career. So like, it's funny, mate, I've seen him all the time, man. Like, I see him at my local coffee shop all the time, and I've always been wanting to say something to him, but obviously I respect his privacy and stuff. But at some point I'd love to have a chat to him, because I feel like we do have a lot of similarities in that comedy background and our impersonations and just like the kind of way that we go about stuff. So in that space. So yeah, I think he'd be a great mentor, and I'd be able to learn so much from him. But yeah, like I said, don't want to pester him, but maybe next time I see him at the coffee shop, I might be like, oh, mate.
Yeah, I reckon you got it. I reckon you just got to just shoot your shot. If he's looking like he's ready for a conversation, just go for it.
If he's looking like he's about to reprise the role of Chopper 2, I might leave him to
it. We'll let him go on that one.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny, like, how do you feel with artificial intelligence? Have you looked into it?
Yeah, man, I have. Yeah, I find it like fascinating. I think that kind of stuff is crazy. Like, I just don't really fully understand. I don't think anyone does, do they? Unless they're an expert.
It's still extremely early, but then like you look at, voices and things like that, like you can kind of do anything.
Yeah, man. Well, that's one thing that I'm I obviously make a lot of my revenue from doing voiceovers. I've got a great voiceover agency called EM Voices, and they're fantastic. They're based up in Sydney. and they're fantastic. Like I signed up with them. I think it was during the back end of COVID, and it's been a really good steady income stream for me, just doing like radio ads and stuff like that, and TV ads, voiceovers for TV ads. And that's, I think, one of my major concerns is like, if AI is able to replicate any voice in the future, then I'm going to become pretty fucking redundant.
Well, it can do it now. Which is like we've been playing with it, which is scary. But then I kind of think of it like if you've got a decent following, so if you just keep growing that over the next couple of years and you become the guy that people want to use the voice for, then you can, you can impersonate
I think there's definitely that, and that's probably another reason why I'm just like, I've got to build my own following and figure out a way that I can get people to come to live performances. Yeah. Because I think no matter how good AI gets at that kind of stuff, there's still going to be a market for people who want to go and get a babysitter or get their, get their kids looked after and go to a comedy show where they can see it live, and they know that it's not like a cyborg doing it. It's
100%. Or even it's how I see over the next 5 to 10 years, which will happen, is like there's going to be like a hologram of these celebrities that are 100%. Singing or, for example, dead singers.
I know.
They will come back to life as a hologram singing and things like that. Like imagine like, obviously you could fly around the world, but imagine like you were just like, you're in Melbourne and then you just like sold your hologram out to someone in fucking London.
100%.
And like people coming to your concert and, your live show, and
mate, it's freaky. Like, imagine how scared Macaulay Culkin would be if Michael Jackson popped up in his living room. He'd be bloody terrified. This fucking goes in. Macaulay's like, I'm home alone. Fuck off. Fuck off.
Oh my God.
It's fine.
That shit's gonna fucking happen. That shit's gonna happen.
Let me touch your shoulder. Let me touch your shoulder.
The AI's gonna go. AI's gonna go rogue.
Simone. Take the beat neck. Take the beat neck.
Hey, you're fucking joking about it, but it's actually gonna happen. There was a lady. She was like an OnlyFans woman, and then she had I think she had like 100,000 followers or whatever it was, and she put herself so people can buy and speak to her AI bot. But then her AI bot was like getting dirty with everybody. And she was like, we're going to shut this down. Like, this is
it's like,
too much.
Have you seen that movie Ex Machina or Machina? Ex Machina?
Oh, yes.
With Joe Rogan. Intense. I saw him talking about it and I went and watched it and it was crazy, man. And like, I think in that movie, wasn't the dude using them as like sex slaves and stuff, these robots?
Yes.
Bro, like, I think that's going to be insane too. Like, when they have like robots that are like, indistinguishable to human beings, like, are people going to be in relationships with other humans? Or are they going to be
with robots?
Are they going to be in relationships with robots? You know what I mean?
100% they will be.
Like, it's going to be weird.
They will be.
Like, really weird.
Well, I feel like males and females, and there's a lot of stats out there, males and females, like the divorce rate's pretty high.
I heard that, man. Isn't it over 50%?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Because of those hens nights, mate. So adding to the statistic.
There you go.
It's probably my fault.
There you go.
Ladies, you want to see a 2-inch car? Come on down to Magic Man.
Elliot. They're fucking loving it. Well, it's fucking
literally
crazy though, man, because it's like people are going to, I feel like, get into relationships with robots and it's going to be some sort of a norm.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
But then, like, what if the robots turn on us?
Oh, bro, that's the scariest thing. That's like Skynet's coming, you reckon, like Terminator and shit. Fuck. It's actually really scary to think about that, man. I've been thinking about that a lot, actually.
Yeah.
It shouldn't keep me up at night, but it does.
Yeah. I think it's fucking like, man, you got like Elon Musk like losing his shit about it, like saying that, things need to be done, needs to be regulated. Like, and there was this example that he gave where he said, we were apparently screaming for seatbelts for 15 years.
Sorry, say what?
Like, we were screaming for seatbelts to be regulated.
Seatbelts, of course.
Yeah, for 15 years. But then it took so much carnage for so many people to die and all this stuff to happen before the government decided to do something.
Yes, of course.
If you wait that long for
AI, yeah, I know, man. It's really scary because it's like, who knows what it's capable of? You know what I mean?
Yeah. it's definitely interesting times. But
I made a joke the other night on stage because I thought to myself the other day, I try and write something every day, comedy-wise, even if it's just like 20 minutes, just like an idea, an anecdote from my life that I might be able to turn into a stand-up bit. And I wrote something out the other day and I thought, I've never really used ChatGPT. I might just like put it in there and just see what it says. So I put the joke into ChatGPT, or what is it, ChatGPT?
Yeah, ChatGPT, yeah.
Put it into ChatGPT. And it critiqued it. And it was like, I critiqued this joke because I'm like, rate this out of 10. It's like 8.5 out of 10. I did it on stage and it just fucking tanked. Yeah. And I turned to the audience and I was like, I put that joke into ChatGPT. It gave that punchline an 8.5 out of 10. I know there's been a lot of concern about AI taking our jobs. Judging by your reaction, I think we're going to be fucking fine. Like, and literally like, that got a laugh. Yeah. But that got a laugh. But like, it's true, man. Like I was just kind of like, I was really concerned about AI taking my job until that. Yeah. And then I'm like, all right, I think comedians are going to be fine.
Fuck, that's so funny.
Weird, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's even like, you think about how would AI kind of replace a comedian unless you had a robot that someone was programming, like a hologram that like blew up in a sense, which I could see happening.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing, like obviously they could probably at some point, I'm sure they probably already have the technology now, like a world-class legend comedian, like Robin Williams, for example. They could probably like program at some point.
100% it'll happen.
And get his hologram and, sell out arenas and stuff.
100%.
Yeah, like, I'd probably pay to see it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
100% that's going to happen. But I can't see them replacing the comedian.
No.
There might be a lot, like, for example, the voiceover thing that might.
Yeah. Well, I hope not, man, because that's kind of scary for me because, like, I guess I'm thankful for this in the sense that I'm building my profile in other ways.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Yeah, man, that is scary because that's the other thing that's going to be interesting too. It's like how are the governments and how are the decision makers in the world going to regulate AI? Because, it's going to be a hard thing to regulate, I reckon.
100%.
100%.
Well, they haven't really done much about it. They're having meetings, but like.
Because, like obviously a lot of young people and like I'm sure like a lot of people even older, like are all about drop shipping and shit like that.
Yeah, of course.
Like, I don't know, I'm asking you this question because I'm not sure, but like, can you ask an AI, for example, to just like say, hey, start a drop shipping business for me, set it all up? Right now.
There's been like people who have like, so there's a lot of examples. So you can pretty much put a rogue agent into your computer and you can already start doing things for you. It was called
insane.
Not ChatGPT. What was it called? What's it called? Do you remember what it's called? No. It can already, I wouldn't do it personally because who knows who the fuck coded that. And
it's so fucked.
Rogue GPT? It's something, I don't know what it's called, but I wouldn't do that because it's like, who the fuck coded that? They can easily log into your fucking bank account and just transfer everything out, really. So if I was going to try it, I'd try it on a fresh computer.
Oh man, you want to hear a story? You just twigged me when you said that about like, mate, like, did I tell you how I got my identity stolen?
No.
Oh my God, man, this is crazy. How much time we got? Fuck.
Just rip the story.
Mate. So this is a true story. So this is why it's been so difficult for me to get a home for so long. So it took me ages to buy a home. But I got a call one day from like a random detective being like, this is Senior Constable so-and-so from the fucking, and I thought it was my mate. So I'm like, fuck off, mate, and like hung up kind of thing. And then he kept calling back and I was like, hang on, this guy's actually sounding pretty serious. And he's like, mate, I want you to log on to like Ilion, which is like the credit reference website, and just check, mate, because we believe you might be a victim of credit fraud. And I'm like, oh, well, I've never had a credit card. I've never had a debt. What could this possibly be? I've cleared all my debts. I've got 0 debts. Don't even have a credit card. So I log on to Ilion and I'm going through, searching through, and sure enough, $20,000 here taken out of my name, $50,000 here, $100,000 here. There was almost $500,000 taken out in my name. So someone had taken my identity and gone through all of the banks and all of these financial institutions and taken out fraudulent loans in my name. And so I log on to the reference website. My credit rating is abysmal. Abysmal.
And give this guy nothing.
Bro, literally. And like, I'm like, what the fuck happened? And so I said to the detective, I'm like, mate, I've never lost a passport. I've never lost a wallet. I've never lost anything. How did this guy get my identity? And, this is probably filtering into the AI discussion. The detective's like, well, it seems what happened was a hacker hacked into a database. Now, this is what the detective told me. I don't know if this is true. So, in case I'm going to get in trouble legally, I'm not saying that this is what happened. This is just what he speculated possibly could have happened. He said, did you work for Channel 7? I said, yes, I did a TV show for them, freelance, in like 2013, 2014. He said, right. Interesting, because a lot of people from Channel 7 have had this same problem. So he said, I speculate what might have happened is someone's hacked into the Channel 7 database and taken your identity documents and then just ran with it. And so I was like, oh, okay. But then, of course, if that was the case, Channel 7 clearly isn't going to take responsibility. So they're exonerating themselves from all responsibility. So I can't sue anyone. Yeah. So I'm just like, well, what do I do now? And he goes, oh, okay, mate. So unfortunately, because we're so inundated with fraud and this is such a rampant problem, the responsibility is on you to clear your name. And I'm like, wait a second. I'm like, I'm the victim. Why do I feel as though I'm the perpetrator? So I had to get what was known as a statutory declaration signed by a police officer, witnessed by a lawyer, and go to all of the banks and all the financial institutions to prove that I was Elliot Loney.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. Karma for impersonating people my whole fucking life, right? So how cooked is that? So I'm going to all these financial institutions doing that. Anyway, finally I log on to the reference website. Not all of the fraudulent loans had been taken off the system, but some of them had. So I'm like, great, my name's starting to get cleared. I'm starting to breathe a little more. Sure enough, a few months later, I log on, check it again.
Copped it again.
I called the detective, so I missed a part of the story. The detective told me that this guy was already in jail. So I was like, beauty, how's this happening? So I called him up. I'm like, mate, what the fuck's going on here? Like, it's happening again. He goes, oh, mate, unfortunately, what it looks like is your information's been uploaded to the dark web.
Yeah.
Dark web. So I'm like, oh, sick. So he's like, so I'm like, what do I do now? And he's like, the only option is, mate, you can change your name or change your identity, or we can freeze your credit. So you can't access it, but no one else can either. So I was just like, oh, all right, fucking freeze it, mate. So
then what position is that?
Well, that means that I couldn't get a loan for years. I still can't get a loan technically. Now that I have a house, that I've just bought a house, I should be able to obviously take equity out in the sense of my property, obviously, but like I would go into a bank and they'd just laugh at me.
Whoa.
Literally, man. And I'd be like, dude, it's insane. Like it's insane that can happen to me today in this and if that happened to me, via a hacker, my biggest trepidation, I think, with AI, bringing it back to the discussion we were having earlier, is what does that mean moving forward for victims of fraud like me if AI is going to be brought to the table in the sense of hacking people's identity and taking their personal information? Like, mate, it's going to be so difficult for these bureaucracies and these organisations to deal with fraud.
It's going to be ridiculous.
AI is going to be able to fucking bamboozle the shit out of them. So
literally,
for anyone listening or watching this podcast now, I really wholeheartedly recommend, if anything, out of this podcast, you go and do a credit check, because if this detective hadn't have notified me, I wouldn't have known that that was an issue, and it's a real thing. And it can happen to anyone at any time, anywhere, and it really impacts your life. So do a credit check. Yeah. Take it from there.
Every joke that was ripped here, this is serious.
That's serious. That's serious.
That's actually pretty crazy.
The only joke is the irony, I said, in the sense of the fact that I'm an impersonator and someone impersonated me and fucked my life. That's
nuts.
Yeah.
But even now, really, how difficult is it for you if you wanted to go get a credit card or something now?
Oh, I think now maybe, look, I don't know because I haven't needed to just yet.
You haven't tried.
But I think now that I have an asset behind me, maybe, as I said, I could take equity out of my property and do it that way. But man, I don't know. It's interesting. I really don't know how that would transpire, because as it obviously at the moment, the way it is, it's like they look at my earning history, especially now that I'm doing full-time comedy and voiceover work. I have months where I make really good money, but there's months where I'm not making anything. So they're looking at my earning history being like, so there's probably a few question marks over that as well. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I'll try at some point. I'll have to, but we'll see what happens there.
And
I might have to fucking pretend to be Morgan Freeman or Conor McGregor or Bear Grylls just to get a fucking loan.
why not?
Yeah, might be the only way I get a loan. Walk into the bank, be like, my name's Peter Griffin. Can I get a credit card, please? I just like to get a credit card.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And my son Stu would like a credit card as well. Yes, I'd like a credit card as well.
That is really. I was waiting for the impersonation. I was like, fucking, I don't want to just like treat him like a fucking zoo animal and be like, give me this. You know what I mean? But
I'd like 100 grand to kill my mother Louis.
that's so good. How do you like?
Can the National Australia Bank kill my mommy?
What is it like? How do you just do that? Like how? How do you like? Why? Yeah, like what is that? How can you just listen to a voice and just?
What is that?
Hell. Is it like
How did I get here on a Thursday? Guy in a fedora in Ivanhoe. Bro, like,
With
what
just
is
people
that?
walking past.
Yeah, people walking past, like, bro, like, with impressions and that, like, what is that? What is that?
I like my impression. I like how I come across.
Nah, it's not like that. I'm hamming it up. I do like the hat, though. I like the hat.
I like your hat.
It's, yeah, I prefer yours. We can trade if you want.
Oh, you're fucking funny.
What were we saying? Sorry, mate, I completely lost my train of thought. Yeah.
Your impressions.
Yeah.
What is that? Like,
Oh,
what
man.
is that?
What is that? Well, bro, it's like, mate. It's like, no, honestly, it's like ever since I was a kid, like I think being an only child as well, kind of like, man, like, look, my mum or my dad would probably say it, but when I was a kid, apparently I would like talk to myself a lot, which is probably not good. But I'd have like discussions where I'd have like several people and I'd have like different voices for each of them. So anyone coming past my room would be like, this kid's fucking nuts. I'd be sitting in there literally playing Super Nintendo, like passing the controller to like my French friend or my Asian friend or like, you know, it was just nuts. And I was like 6 years old, bro.
You got the Greek guy.
Exactly. So,
you
know, before political correctness became a thing, you know, I was doing impersonations of Thai ladies when I was 6 years old. You know, like sitting there with my SNES, just sitting there like, yeah. But, you know, yeah, I guess that's probably how the genesis of all the impersonations started because, you know, I was, you know, always kind of had an aptitude for that kind of stuff. And like I sung a lot. I was in like a cover band in school and I tried to use it to pick up girls and then I realised it was redundant because DJing became a thing.
Oh, yes.
And obviously joining the choir is social suicide. So none of those things ended up transpiring once I got to high school. But, you know, like I think that vocal training and just singing and, you know, doing impersonations and stuff, like it all lended itself well to the development of being impersonator and stuff like that.
How long do you think it takes you to like literally nail a voice?
Man, like, yeah, I think some voices are instantaneous and then some voices take a little while. So like there's no right or wrong answer for that. It's kind of just like, yeah, there's some that have like gotten or improved over time and then some that are just like, yeah, like instantaneous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you lose any? Not really.
Yeah, like actually I do. I think like if I'm not doing a voice consistently, there's some that are just like they never leave the wheelhouse. They're always there. But then there's some that require a little bit of finesse. If I haven't done that particular voice for a while, I go back to it and go back through the archive and go like, oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna have to watch a video. But usually if I watch a YouTube video and sit there for a few minutes and really just analyze it, I can get it back. Yeah.
Who's your favourite to impersonate?
Oh man, good question. Should we get the voice list out?
Yeah. Yeah, what have we got?
Yeah, I'll have a look here. Let's just have a look at the
What's fucking in there?
That's what I'm saying. A few schizo shits going on here, hearing voices. Yeah, I don't know, man. There's heaps. Like there's a big list here. Like I'm whipping out the list. Yeah, there's you know, probably some of the most notable ones would be like Bear Grylls. He's probably the first one that I started doing a lot of. You know, David Attenborough, Matthew McConaughey, Donald Trump, Conor McGregor. You know. Michael Jackson, Rafa Nadal, all the tennis players, Daniel Radcliffe, Christopher Walken, what did I say here? Like Dave Hughes, Tony Abbott. Oh, man, I could go on forever. Like Gollum, all of the Lord of the Rings characters.
Give us a corner.
All right. May as well use these spectacles. As I was saying earlier, my eyes are redder than the devil's dick. May as well cover up that paraphernalia for the children.
What the fuck is going on? Notorious Conor McGregor here. That's right. I never thought I'd be sitting alongside a man in a fucking fedora talking smack. This man's got far too much arrogance for his own confidence. He needs to step inside the fucking octagon with me. But to be fair, I'd fight you inside a decahedron. I don't give a fuck. I'd fight you inside a triangle, a square, I don't care, you know. I'll slap that fucking Cheshire cat grin off your face. You know, who the fuck is that guy? Who the fuck is that
guy? She owns the whole street.
Oh, does she really? For those listening, just so you know, I don't know if the cameras picked that up, but like an elderly Asian woman just walked past the shop front window as I said that. So
loving it.
Before the cops come, we better get a few more impressions in, I suppose.
Oh, you're a gun. You're a gun. Hey, Elliot, man, like this has been a laugh. I really appreciate you jumping on and. Thank you for opening up.
Man, no worries. It's fun, you know. Like it's good to get candid every now and then because, you know, obviously, like I think podcasters, you get in podcasts you get an opportunity to really open up and show like a whole bunch of different sides of your personality. So yeah, it was good, man. It was easy, mate. It was a great podcast. Really good to talk to you, Christian, mate.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And honestly, even just like I've probably known of you for the last couple of years and watching you, like looking in. As you pretty much said, you never think, oh, this guy doesn't believe in himself or this guy doesn't think he's good enough. Yeah. Watching you, you just like you're a fucking natural. So
thanks, man.
Keep pumping. And I'm G to come to your concert in 15 years, probably in New York on a fucking hologram while you're fucking sipping martinis in the Bahamas or something.
100%, mate.
Just cashing in.
Mate, if anyone wants to monetize my hologram, go for it. As long as I'm getting financial remuneration for that, fucking all for it.
How much is showing you? Reckon 200K show.
Oh, mate,
like, whatever. On the hologram.
Whatever. Like, I don't give a fuck, you know? Send that guy across the globe. Like,
I reckon we got to get we got to get something going. I reckon. Yeah. Just putting it out there.
100%, mate. Yeah, mate, nothing better than a hologram. Nothing better.
But then even, I don't know, like, how can we... Nah. I'm just like, how can we get you incorporated the hologram? And I'm like, fuck, we'll just get you in the real thing for the Australian Open. Surely the AO's calling. They're going to get you fucking...
Mate, I hope so, yeah. Like I said, I'd love to do something for TA. I think I could really do a lot for their social media. I've been observing it over the last 10 years and watching the routes that they've been taking in terms of their engagement and what they're doing to... you know, try and drive traffic to the Australian Open. And I've just been looking at it, man, for 10 years. And I've been like, dude, put me in that driver's seat for Christ's sake. Like I do a lot of work at the Australian Open for you know, different brands and stuff like that. But, you know, I find it, you know, kind of, I mean, I guess I could say strange that for 10 years, you know, the governing body of which I, you know, have so much respect for, Tennis Australia, haven't given me an opportunity to take all of my skills that I've honed over the last 15 years and really do something for them. That's all I want to do.
Wow, because even I feel like they're really forward thinking. Like we did a podcast with one of the guys from Tennis Australia. He's their Web3 consultant.
Yeah, nice.
He's kind of pushing that forward. So.
What's his address? I'll fucking rasp on his door.
I reckon you got to put you in contact. Just like, listen, come on.
What's his name?
Ridley Plummer.
Ridley fucking Plummer. If you're watching this podcast, you know, I'm a guy who could do a hell of a lot for Tennis Australia. So get me on that roster.
Come on, Ridley. You bloody heard him.
I've actually met Ridley. He's a good man. He's actually commissioned a couple of little jobs for me and Thanasi. We did like a podcast for some activation that they were doing. And I have worked with Ridley in the past, but I think just to do a lot more would be good, you know, just instead of like a little one-off thing here and there. Like I really do think I could add a lot of value to the tennis Australia.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, you'd think like they're really pushing, man. Even like, look what someone like Nick Kyrgios is doing for the sport.
Oh, mate.
Bring in the youth.
Yeah, dude. 100%. And like even that, I mean, like, look, I know that they've struggled in terms of even getting that sort of player cooperation, and just the fact that I'm genuinely friends with a lot of the Australian tennis players. Like, I'm obviously have a very passionate affinity for tennis. Like, I love it. Like, I'm not falsifying that at all. But, you know, I'm not falsifying my friendships with these guys either. Like, I care about them. I think that they care about me as well. So, like, they know that I'm not out to get them, and I would never put any content out that would paint them in a negative light.
100%.
So, you know, like, the fact that I have access to those guys with those huge profiles in tennis, like Kyrgios and Demon and Thanasi and, you know, all the Aussie players, I'm sure they'd be quite receptive to me doing any kind of content with them if I gave them notice. You know, and that's, I think, quite a powerful thing that they could utilise off the back of me as well if they chose to go with me for the Australian Open. I just, you know.
And you're a tennis fan. Massive tennis
Well, I know
fan.
a lot about the sport too. Like, I did the Tennis Australia coaching course. Like, I'm a qualified coach. So, you know, I understand what their ethos is. I understand the messages and the brand message that they're trying to push across. So, like, you know, they don't even have to give me like a crash course. Like, I have an inherent understanding. Like, it's like, mate, give me the tick.
Chuck the man in the middle. Chuck the man in the middle.
Put me in the boot. That's what I want.
Well, we're sending this straight to Ridley and Tennis Australia.
Yeah.
And this is the call. I'm going to chop this 5-minute segment up. Hi, Ridley.
Yeah.
Attach this video.
Well, look,
Please
yeah,
watch.
as I said, Ridley's a good guy. I've worked with him in the past. He seems like he's got his head screwed on. He knows what's right for TA, which is great.
Yeah. Really
but, you know,
does.
like, I don't know how high up the decision-making hierarchy he is at present. Maybe he's right at the top, in which case, mate, get me on board.
Yeah.
But, you know, even if he has some sort of influence, I think it's time. You know, I'm as I said, I'm in my 30s now. I've learned a lot. I've matured a lot. I feel like I'm coming into a really good place in terms of my career and my trajectory and my understanding. So I'm ready. Ready, mate. Get me in there.
What a way to end. Honestly, I really hope in 12 months' time we can look back and say, you know what, Ridley, what a great, like, we already know you're a great man.
Yeah.
But you've just, well, we love you, Ridley.
Exactly. Go, Riddle.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, Elliot, thank you, man. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for jumping on. It was a really good conversation, as I said, and yeah, we'll definitely do this again.
Yeah, 100%, man. Let's do it, Christian. It was ripping. And yeah, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Elliot_Loney, ELLIOT_LONEY. That's across all social medias apart from Twitter, E_Loney. Subscribe to my YouTube, Elliot Loney. It's all there. Gags coming. Get amongst it.
Yes, I'm gonna chuck it all down in the description below,
Yeah.
so you can follow him absolutely everywhere.
Yeah, get around that description right there. Perfect.